Whispers of the Tether by Whisper Quill. Prologue. She knew he wouldn't stay. The way Calum touched her, like she was a secret he wanted to keep, not a promise he meant to honor. Alira had felt it from the beginning. But witches weren't built for softness, and she'd let herself believe in the lie anyway. They met in the borderlands, where the trees grew thick and the moonlight didn't ask questions. He was Alpha then, young and bold, already carrying the weight of a legacy that demanded sons and strength. She was a healer, quiet and sharp, with magic in her blood and warnings in her dreams. He told her he wanted peace, that the war between witches and wolves was old and tired, that her magic could help his kind survive. She gave him spells, blood, trust. He gave her warmth and silence. Then he took what he came for. The binding ritual was meant to protect his pack. Alira had crafted it carefully, weaving her own essence into the spell, but Calum twisted it, used it to tether the werewolf bloodline to himself, making his pack immune to witchcraft. Stronger, untouchable. She felt the betrayal before the spell finished. Her body broke. Her magic didn't. The curse came quietly. Not fire, not fury, just a slow rot. Male children born after that night began to die before they could shift. The wolves blamed fate. The witches said nothing. Alira died later that night. Morgana found her in the final hours, barely breathing, clutching her stomach like it was the last thing she had left. The child was born in silence. A girl, half witch, half wolf, a living contradiction. They named her Faye, and they hid her from the world. Chapter 1. The Last Funeral. The boy's body lay wrapped in linen, small enough to be mistaken for a bundle of cloth. His name had been Theo. 11 years old. Bright-eyed, a fast runner. He had nearly reached 12 before the curse claimed him. Lucas stood at the edge of the clearing, watching the pack gather in silence. No howls. No rites. Just the shuffle of boots on damp earth and the low hum of grief that had become routine. The air smelled of pine and wet soil, but beneath it lingered something sour, like old blood and broken promises. They buried Theo beside the others. 138 graves now. All boys. All under 12. Lucas did not speak. He hadn't spoken at a funeral since his brother's. 15 years had passed, but he remembered it as if it were yesterday. 17 years old, raw and furious, fists clenched while the earth swallowed his brother. He had thought he could fight fate then. He had been wrong. Now, at 32, he was alpha by necessity, not choice. The pack looked to him for answers, but he had none. Only the same question that never left him. How do you fight a curse that kills your sons before they're old enough to shift? Elias stood beside him, arms crossed, jaw set. "We're down to 80 males," he said quietly. "Less than half under 10. Lucas's mouth tightened. "We won't make it another decade." The wind stirred the trees. Far off, a wolf howled, one of the older ones, mourning, or maybe just remembering what it felt like to run without fear. Lucas didn't turn toward the sound. His eyes stayed on the grave, on the way the earth settled as if it had been waiting. Elias hesitated. "There's talk again. About the witches." Lucas's gaze sharpened. "From who?" "Some of the elders. They think it's time to cross the border, to ask for help." "We don't ask witches for help. They say there's one who might be different." Lucas said nothing. He knew the story. Everyone did. A witch born of betrayal. Hidden. Powerful. The last hope. But stories didn't lift curses. And witches didn't save wolves. Still, the thought lingered. The pack dispersed slowly. Shoulders bent. Heads low. Grief was no longer a single moment. It was a way of moving. Worn into them like second nature. Lucas watched them go, their silence pressing into his bones. Back at the den, the council gathered. Old wolves with graying hair and tired eyes sat around the fire, as though it could warm away 30 years of loss. "We need to act," said Marin, the eldest. Her voice was brittle, but her gaze was sharp. "The curse is thinning us." 3 boys gone this season alone. Lucas leaned against the stone wall, arms folded. "You think witches will help us?" "I think we're out of options." Rourke, another elder, snorted. "They started this war." "Let them finish it." "They didn't start it," Marin said quietly. "Calum did." The name settled heavy over the chamber. No one spoke. Lucas broke the silence. "Even if this witch exists, even if she's willing to help, how do we find her? We don't even know her name." "She carries a mark," Marin said. "A crescent scar on her left wrist. Illyra's blood left it behind." Lucas frowned. "You believe she's out there, walking around with a curse-breaking scar for anyone to see?" "I believe she's been hiding. And I believe she's tired of running." Lucas didn't answer. He watched the fire crackle and thought of Theo, of his brother, of the graves lined in rows like warnings. That night, sleep did not come. He walked the border instead, where the forest grew thick and the moonlight asked no questions. The trees whispered, the wind carried strange scents. And somewhere beyond the line, in the quiet heart of the woods, a girl named Faye stirred in her sleep, unaware that the wolves had begun to look for her. Chapter 2. The Witch in the Woods. Faye woke before dawn. The air inside her cottage was cool, damp with the lingering mist that clung to the forest floor. She stretched beneath her worn cloak, fingers brushing the rough wood of the bed frame. The forest had been restless in her dreams again, shadows whispering, roots shifting, the sound of a boy's laughter cut short. She pushed the thought away and rose. Her home sat at the edge of the spiral grove, a place most witches avoided. The trees there grew in strange patterns, their trunks twisting as if caught mid-breath. But Faye had never feared them. The grove listened to her. It always had. She stepped outside, barefoot on the moss, and the earth greeted her with a faint pulse beneath her skin. Her magic stirred, quiet and steady, flowing through her veins like a second heartbeat. The forest knew her. It bent for her, softened around her. But tonight, it felt watchful. A fox darted past, eyes wide, fur bristling. Faye crouched and pressed her palm to the ground. Magic stirred beneath her skin. Not loud, not wild, just present. Waiting. She whispered something in a strange language, and the earth answered. The fox slowed, turned, and limped toward her. Its leg was twisted, bone set wrong. Faye didn't flinch. She reached out, fingers brushing fur, and let the magic flow. It wasn't light or heat. It was memory. The way bones should be. The way blood used to run. The fox blinked once, then bolted into the trees, whole again. Faye exhaled. Healing was easy. It was the rest that felt impossible. Behind her, the coven stirred. Morgana's voice cut through the trees like a blade. "You shouldn't be out alone." Faye didn't turn. "I wasn't alone." Morgana stepped into view. Her eyes were unreadable. "The wolves are restless." "Another boy died yesterday." Faye's jaw tightened. "How old?" 11. Almost 12. She nodded. That made 138. She didn't know their names, but she felt them. Each death left a mark, small, sharp, like a thorn beneath her ribs. "They'll come looking," Morgana said. "They always do." Faye looked up. "You think they'll find me?" "I think they'll try." She didn't ask what Morgana would do if they did. She already knew. Morgana was the coven's leader, the one who had found Elira in her final moments and carried a crying child out of the blood-soaked ruins. She had raised Faye since then, guarded her, hidden her. Some said she was as merciless as stone, but Faye knew better. Morgana's silence was its own kind of shield. But Faye wasn't like the others. Her magic didn't obey. It pulsed when she was angry, surged when she was afraid, and lately it had started to hum when she dreamed. She dreamed of wolves, not monsters, not enemies, just eyes in the dark, light brown hair, ocean eyes. A voice she hadn't heard but somehow recognized. She didn't tell Morgana. Instead, she walked deeper into the woods, past wards and runes and all the places where magic held firm. She reached the edge of the border, the invisible line between witchland and wolf territory. The air was different here, thinner, hungrier. She knelt, pressing her fingers to the soil. It was cold. Not dead, but close. "Show me," she whispered. The magic flickered. A vision bloomed, brief, broken. A boy wrapped in linen. A grave. A man standing silent, eyes like the ocean before a storm. Faye pulled back, heart thudding. She didn't know his name, but she knew he was coming. And when he did, everything would change. She returned to the coven's circle as the sun began to rise. The others were already awake, gathered around the fire. Morgana stood in the center, staff planted firmly in the earth. "Faye," she said without turning, "come." Faye stepped closer, the warmth of the flames brushing her skin. Morgana's eyes met hers, and for a moment something flickered there. Recognition, maybe, or fear. "We need to reinforce the wards," Morgana said. "The wolves are closer than they've been in years." Faye nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. The vision clung to her like smoke that wouldn't wash off. "They're not just searching," she said softly. "They're desperate." Morgana's gaze sharpened. "And that makes them dangerous." Faye didn't argue. She knew desperation. She had seen it in dying animals, in the way the forest twisted when something unnatural passed through. She had even seen it in herself once, when she tried to heal a girl poisoned by her own coven. The girl had lived, but her eyes had never stopped bleeding. Faye had learned restraint after that, but it had never come easy. Later that day, she wandered back to the border. The forest was quieter now, the wind softer. She sat beneath an old ash tree, tracing circles into the dirt with her fingertip. At first, she didn't notice the scent. Pine, leather, smoke. Then the forest shifted. The birds fell silent. The wind stilled. Even the trees seemed to brace themselves. A branch snapped. Faye looked up. He stepped through the mist as if it parted for him. Light brown hair tousled by wind. Ocean eyes, sharp and unreadable. Broad shoulders wrapped in a cloak that looked like it had seen too many winters. He didn't speak, just watched her, like he wasn't sure she was real. The air between them crackled, heavy with something unspoken. Faye froze, magic stirring in her veins, restless and uncertain. He took one step closer, and the bond struck. Not gentle, not quiet, violent, like lightning splitting the sky. Her breath caught, his eyes widened. The world itself seemed to pause. It wasn't just recognition, it was a warning. Chapter 3. The Line Between. The border wasn't marked by stone or spell. It was older than that, woven into the roots of the forest, etched into the silence between trees. Witches didn't cross it. Wolves didn't either. Not since that night. Lucas had told himself he wouldn't cross the border. Not yet. Not until he had proof the stories were more than whispers. But proof didn't matter anymore. Not when Theo's grave was still fresh, and the air reeked of death. The night before, he had stood at the boy's burial, head bowed, listening to the sound of dirt hitting wood. Theo had been only 11. Too young, too small. He should have had years to run with the pack, to feel the wind in his fur, to know the strength of the bond. Instead, his life had been snatched away by the same sickness that had been hollowing out their young for years. Lucas had led them through every ritual, every hunt, every desperate prayer to the moon. None of it mattered. His wolves were still dying, and the weight of each one pressed heavier on his chest. So now he was here, pacing a line no wolf should ever cross. The forest on this side was wrong, wilder. Every branch seemed to lean closer, listening. Every shadow carried weight. The ground was damp, but not with rain. Something else, like the earth itself, was sweating. Wolves weren't welcome here, and Lucas felt it in his bones, in the prickle at the back of his neck. Jared, his wolf, prowled inside him, restless. We shouldn't be here. I know, Lucas thought back. His wolf's voice was low, edged with warning, but beneath it was something else. Hunger, expectation. Still, he pressed on. The scent hit him first. Not wolf, not pine, something else. Warm, sharp, electric. It hooked into him, steady as a tether. His pulse jumped, and before he realized it, he was following. The trees parted, and there she was. A girl beneath an ash tree, midnight hair loose around her face, bare feet in the soil, a cloak the color of storm clouds wrapped around her shoulders. She didn't look like the witches from the old war stories, yet the air around her bent, alive and dangerous. She lifted her head. Their eyes met. Something hit him. Hard, violent. His chest tightened, breath ripped from his lungs. His wolf surged so sharply he staggered. Mine! Jared's voice ripped through him, guttural and fierce. Lucas's claws prickled beneath his skin. His body shook with the effort to stay in control. His wolf had never sounded so certain. No, Lucas pushed back, but Jared snarled, pacing in his mind. Yes. Ours. Her lips parted, like she felt it too. For a moment the clearing held its breath. Lucas forced air into his lungs. The pack couldn't know. Not yet. He stepped forward once. Her magic answered instantly, flaring hot. The ash tree behind her shivered, roots straining in the dirt. Jared howled inside him, desperate to close the space. Lucas's heart hammered, but he held his ground. The bond burned between them, alive, undeniable, dangerous. This was no ordinary witch. And now, there was no turning back. Lucas swallowed hard, dragging his gaze away for a second, but it didn't help. Every part of him was locked on her. The scent of her filled his lungs, mixing with the earth, the ash, the faint trace of something wild. She didn't move, didn't blink, just stared at him like she was reading his soul. Jared pressed harder. Go to her. If I do, we're finished, Lucas thought, gritting his teeth. He couldn't let the pack see him weakened. Couldn't let them know the Alpha had found his bond with a witch, of all creatures. They'd never accept it. Not when hatred had been fed to them for generations. Not when their dead children lay in shallow graves. Still, the bond pulled. It was more than scent, more than instinct. It was like someone had carved a line straight through him and tied it to her. He could feel the tug in his blood, in the very beat of his heart. The witch shifted slightly, her cloak slipping off one shoulder. The fire of her magic hadn't dimmed. It hovered in the air, prickling his skin like static. Lucas saw her fingers dig into the dirt, steadying herself. Whatever she felt, it wasn't one-sided. Is she feeling the bond? How? Lucas thought. For a long moment they simply stared at one another across the clearing. Predator and prey, though Lucas couldn't decide which one he was anymore. Finally, she drew a shaky breath. It was small, but the sound carried in the silence, sharp as a blade. Lucas's jaw tightened. Jared growled deep in his chest, a sound only he could hear, and Lucas realized he couldn't stay here much longer. If he did, he would move closer. And if he moved closer... "She's ours," Jared whispered again, quieter now, more certain. Lucas closed his eyes for half a second, fighting for control. When he opened them again, she was still watching him, emerald eyes wide, unblinking. He knew then that his world had just been split in two, and the pieces would never fit the same again. Chapter 4. The Witch's Bond. Faye's fingers curled deeper into the dirt as the man stepped into the clearing. The forest went still around them. A wolf. She knew it instantly. She had seen wolves from a distance before, usually when they patrolled their border, but never this close. Never staring at her as though she were the one trespassing. She forced her voice steady. "You shouldn't be here." His gaze didn't falter. His voice was low, gravel threaded with restraint. "Neither should you." The word startled her. Witchland was her home, wasn't it? Unless he could feel what she felt. That tether that pulsed like a second heartbeat in her chest. Her hand trembled, so she pressed it harder into the soil, letting the earth's steadiness anchor her. "This is coven ground," she said, sharper now. "Wolves don't belong here." He stepped forward, just a single pace, but the air between them snapped like lightning. She bit back a gasp, her magic flaring so violently the ash tree shuddered, leaves falling in a rain around her. "I didn't come for ground," he said, jaw tight. Her heart raced. "Then what did you come for?" For a long moment he said nothing. His ocean eyes, endless, searched her face as though the answer might be written there instead. Finally, he murmured, "I don't know." The honesty caught her off guard. She expected threats, not confession. The pull grew unbearable. Faye rose slowly from the dirt, brushing her cloak back over her shoulder, her magic flickering around her fingertips. She needed distance, but her feet didn't obey. The bond rooted her in place. "You're dangerous," she whispered. His lips curved, not into a smile, but into something tired, edged. "Says the witch." Her jaw clenched. "You came looking." "Don't pretend otherwise." Something flickered in his expression, gone as quickly as it came. He was fighting himself. She recognized the look, saw it often in the dying animals she healed, when they wanted to bolt, but were too weak to stand. Except this man wasn't weak. He was strong, every line of his body wound tight with control. She tilted her head, studying him. "You've lost another boy." The words slipped out before she could stop them. His eyes sharpened, the air between them cutting colder. "How do you know that?" Faye's breath caught. She hadn't meant to say it aloud. The earth had shown her Theo's grave, his small body wrapped in linen. She had felt it in the soil itself, the grief seeping like blood into roots. She lifted her chin anyway. "The ground tells me things." His voice dropped lower. "Dangerous." "Then tell me this. Do you know how to stop it?" The question landed heavy, the tether pulling tighter. Her heart thudded. She thought of Morgana's warnings, of the coven's strict rules. No contact, no mercy, no exceptions. But here he was, bound to her by something older than rules. She shook her head slowly. "Not yet." Something like hope flickered in his gaze, faint, desperate, reckless. His wolf stirred inside him then. She could feel it, pressing against his skin. His eyes darkened, a growl rumbling low in his chest. She froze as his voice cracked, two tones layered together. "Mine." Her breath hitched. The word hadn't left his mouth, but she heard it all the same. The tether seared through her veins, hot and merciless. "I am not yours," she said sharply, even as her pulse betrayed her. He flinched, jaw tightening. He looked ready to argue, but instead he dragged a hand through his hair and stepped back, as though distance might smother the bond. It didn't. "Stay away from the border," he said, voice rough, "for your own sake." Faye's magic coiled tighter, whispering that if he walked away, the tether might tear something vital from her, but she forced her chin up, masking the panic. "And you," she said softly, "should stop pretending you don't already know you'll be back." For a second, silence stretched between them, sharp and fragile. His wolf snarled faintly under his skin. Then he turned, cloak snapping behind him as he vanished back into the mist of the forest. Faye's knees nearly buckled. The ash tree behind her groaned once more, roots curling deep into the soil like they too had felt the bond. She pressed her hand to her wrist where the crescent mark burned faintly, an ache she couldn't ignore. The bond was real, and it had chosen a wolf. She didn't know if that made her their salvation or their ruin. By morning, the tension hadn't faded. Faye moved through the coven's camp with practiced ease, gathering herbs, checking wards, avoiding questions. The others noticed her silence, but no one asked. Morgana, however, was watching. She found Faye near the edge of the eastern grove, sorting dried leaves into bundles. "You went to the border," Morgana said. Faye didn't look up. "I didn't cross. That's not what I asked." Faye tied the bundle tightly. "He was there." Morgana stepped closer. "Lucas Thorne." Faye's fingers paused. "You know him." "He's Alpha. Young but steady. Dangerous in the way quiet men often are." Faye set the bundle aside. "He didn't threaten me. He doesn't need to. The bond does the work for him." Faye finally looked up. "You knew this would happen." Morgana's expression didn't change. "I suspected." "You should have told me." "You wouldn't have listened." Faye stood, brushing dirt from her hands. "It's strong." "I know." "It's not supposed to be." Morgana's gaze sharpened. "You're not supposed to exist." The words landed hard. Faye didn't flinch, but she felt them. She'd always known she was different. Her magic didn't follow the rules. Her blood didn't either. "You're the product of a broken promise," Morgana said. "A witch born of a wolf's betrayal. That bond is a reminder." Faye crossed her arms. "Of what?" "That even curses have roots." They stood in silence. The wind moved through the trees, slow and deliberate. Faye spoke first. "He'll come back." "Yes. What do I do?" Morgana didn't answer right away. She looked at Faye like she was trying to decide whether to protect her or prepare her. "You listen," she said. "You don't trust. You don't give. You listen." Lucas didn't sleep that night. He sat in the den's main hall, staring at the fire until it burned low. Elias found him there just after dawn, carrying a mug of bitter tea and a look that said he already knew. "She's real," Lucas said. Elias handed him the mug. "You saw her?" Lucas nodded. "She didn't speak much, but she didn't run." Elias sat beside him. "What did it feel like?" Lucas didn't answer right away. He stared into the flames, remembering the way the bond had hit, like a punch to the chest, like a thread pulled tight between them. "Like I've been waiting for something I didn't know I needed," he said. Elias didn't speak. He didn't need to. Lucas took a slow breath. "She's powerful. She would have to be. She didn't show it. But I felt it." Elias leaned forward. "What now?" Lucas shook his head. "I don't know." "She's a witch." "She's my mate." Elias's eyes widened, but he didn't speak. They sat in silence. Lucas finally stood. "I'm going back." Elias didn't argue. "Be careful." Lucas nodded. "Always." Faye returned to the border just before dusk. She didn't know why. She told herself it was curiosity, caution, strategy. But the truth was simpler. She wanted to see him again. She stood beneath the ash tree, cloak wrapped tight, eyes scanning the woods beyond. The air was still. The forest quiet. Then he appeared. Lucas stepped through the trees like he belonged there. He didn't speak, just stopped at the edge of his territory, eyes locking onto hers. Faye's magic stirred, not wild, just aware. "You came back," she said. Lucas nodded. "I said I would." They stood in silence. Faye stepped forward, just enough to make the border feel thinner. "You shouldn't be here." "I didn't cross." "You want to." Lucas didn't deny it. Faye studied him. He looked tired, determined, handsome in a way that felt unfair, like the forest had carved him from something older than time. "I don't know what this is," she said. Lucas's voice was quiet. "It's a bond." "I didn't ask for it." "Neither did I." She looked down. "It's strong." "I know." Faye's fingers twitched, her magic pulsed, steady and low. Lucas stepped closer. "I don't want to scare you." "You don't." "I don't want to use you." Faye looked up. "Then what do you want?" Lucas met her gaze. "I want to understand." She didn't speak. The wind shifted again, but unknown to them, something moved in the trees. Not witch, not wolf, something older. Watching, waiting. The forest didn't settle after Lucas left. It stayed taut, like a string pulled too tight. Faye felt it in her bones, in the way her magic refused to quiet. She hadn't slept. Again. She sat by the fire pit, grinding dried valerian root into powder, but her hands moved without thought. Her mind was elsewhere, still caught in the moment his eyes met hers, still echoing with the weight of what hadn't been said. Across the clearing, Morgana watched. "You're distracted," she said. Faye didn't look up. "I'm focused." "On him." Faye's fingers paused. "On the bond." Morgana stepped closer, her robes brushing the ground like mist. "It's not just a bond, Faye. It's a tether. If you let it pull too hard, it'll drag you into his world. And you won't come back the same." Faye met her gaze. "Maybe I'm not meant to stay the same." Morgana's expression didn't shift, but something in her eyes flickered. "You're meant to survive." Faye stood, brushing powder from her palms. "Survival isn't the same as silence." She walked away before Morgana could respond. Lucas didn't speak to the council that morning. He didn't need their permission. He was Alpha. But he could feel the weight of their eyes as he passed through the den, curious, cautious, waiting. Elias followed him outside, boots crunching over frostbitten leaves. "You're not sleeping," Elias said. Lucas didn't answer. "You are not eating." Still nothing. Elias grabbed his arm. "You're unraveling." Lucas turned, slow and deliberate. "I saw her again." Elias didn't flinch. "And?" "She's not what they said she'd be." "That's dangerous." Lucas nodded. "I know." They walked in silence until they reached the edge of the territory. The border loomed ahead, invisible, but felt. Lucas stopped just short of it. "She's in my head," he said. Elias didn't speak. Lucas clenched his jaw. "I don't know if it's the bond or something else. But I can't shake it." Elias looked at him, something unreadable in his eyes. "Then maybe it's time you ask why." Lucas turned. "You know something." Elias hesitated. "I know what the witches say. I know what Morgana hides." Lucas stepped closer. "Say it." Elias lowered his voice. "She's not just a witch. She's the curse's origin, the bloodline, the reason it still holds." Lucas's breath caught. "She's Calem's daughter." Elias nodded. "And Alira's." Lucas stepped back, the forest spinning for a moment. "That makes her not your enemy," Elias said. "Not your ally, either." Lucas stared at the trees. "Then what is she?" Elias didn't answer. Chapter 5. The First Tremor. The wolves had grown used to silence, but this silence was different. Lucas stood at the border where the pines grew thick, Elias beside him. The night pressed down heavy. No wind, no owls, just a stillness that clawed at the edges of instinct. His wolf, Jared, stirred beneath his skin, restless. Elias crouched, touching the earth. His fingers came back damp with soil. It's wrong here. Lucas scanned the shadows. How? The ground hums, Elias murmured, like it's carrying something it shouldn't. Before Lucas could answer, a scout stumbled out of the trees. His chest heaved, shirt torn, his eyes wide. They're moving, the scout rasped. Who? Lucas stepped forward. Not wolves. Not witches. Shadows, the man swallowed hard. It was like the forest was bleeding. Elias stiffened, gaze flicking to Lucas. Neither spoke, but both thought the same name. Calum, the curse caster, the butcher, the one who had started the war. Dead, but never gone. Lucas gritted his teeth. Get back to the den. Tell Marin to hold counsel. The scout hesitated. Alpha, do you not want to see it? I'll see it soon enough. His voice was sharp. Go. The man obeyed, vanishing into the trees. Elias said nothing for a long while. Then quietly, it's starting again. Lucas didn't reply. He was staring at the forest, where the shadows seemed to ripple without wind. Far across the border, Faye woke with a startle. Her chest heaved, breath shallow, hair damp with sweat. The dream clung to her skin. Chains rattling, a voice whispering through stone, eyes the color of crimson. She pressed her palm to the earth beside her bed of moss. The soil pulsed once, then again, then recoiled, as though rejecting her touch. Her stomach dropped. The forest never recoiled from her. Show me, she whispered. Magic flickered, reluctant. A vision shimmered against her mind's eye, a stag stumbling through the grove, veins blackened, eyes white, its breath steaming like smoke. Behind it, only darkness. The vision cut off. Faye pulled back, heart pounding. Footsteps approached. Morgana's voice followed, cold and sharp. You felt it. Faye didn't look up. The forest is sick. Morgana stepped into the dim clearing, staff in hand. Her face, lined by years, remained unreadable. Not sick. Poisoned. Faye's throat tightened. By what? Not what? Morgana's gaze lingered on her. The past has long arms, child, and shadows longer still. The staff struck the ground once, and the wards around their camp flickered faintly, like candlelight against wind. Faye dared to ask, Calum? Morgana's silence was answer enough. At the den, the council fire burned low. The elders sat in a ring, their faces drawn, voices hushed. The scouts' report spread quickly, and fear clung to the air like smoke. We cannot face this alone, Marin said, her old voice steady. The curse was not undone by time. Something deeper is stirring. Rourke leaned forward, eyes blazing. You'd drag us to witches now? After 30 years of graves? They may be the only ones who understand it, Marin shot back. Lucas stood, his shadow falling across the circle. Enough. His voice cut through the bickering. We don't run to witches. Not yet, but we don't ignore this either. Elias added, the scout wasn't lying. Something moved through the woods. We all felt it. Rourke's lip curled. And what do you propose, Alpha? Wait for the shadows to swallow the young ones whole? Lucas's fists clenched at his sides. He hated Rourke's words because they carried truth. We'll send more patrols. Double the borders. No one hunts alone. If it comes closer, we'll be ready. Ready? Rourke barked a laugh. You can't fight smoke. Then we find out what it really is. Lucas's voice was low, dangerous, and we end it. The fire cracked between them. No one argued further. The next evening, Faye walked the border again. She didn't tell Morgana. She didn't tell anyone. Her dreams had sharpened, the stag haunting her, its white eyes following her into waking hours. When she reached the ash tree, the air felt heavy. She knelt, touched the ground. The soil trembled beneath her fingers, faint but certain. Then she heard it, a snap of branches, a rush of movement. Her head whipped up. Through the mist stumbled the stag from her vision, its antlers tangled with bark, its flanks heaving, black veins crawling up its legs. Its eyes glowed white, unnatural. Faye's breath caught. The animal collapsed, body twitching, froth dark at its mouth. The forest shivered around it. Behind the stag, the shadows lingered, not quite form, not quite air, but watching. Faye staggered back, her magic sparking wild beneath her skin. The bond from before, the one tied to the wolf with ocean eyes, stirred faintly, as though warning her. For the first time, Faye felt it too. The forest was not theirs anymore, and whatever had poisoned it was only the beginning. Chapter 6. Whispers of the Past. Faye sat near the dying fire, unable to rest. The image of the stag burned behind her eyes. Morgana had said little since, only ordered the coven to strengthen their wards. But Faye felt the truth pressing against her chest like a weight. This was not sickness. This was someone's hand. When she finally drifted to sleep, the dream came. The forest was burning, smoke clawing at the sky. Elira, young, fierce, her hair tangled with ash, stood at its heart, her staff raised. Across from her, a man cloaked in black, eyes gleaming silver. Calum. Stand aside, he said, voice sharp as glass. You cannot hold back what was promised. Elira's grip tightened. You seek to break the balance, Calum. Witches were never meant to rule with chains. They were meant to rule, he spat, not hide behind trees and whispers. With my power, the world will kneel. Elira's voice wavered, but her stance did not. Then it is a world I want no part of. He reached toward her. Come back to me, Elira. You bore my blood. You know what binds us. Together, we can shape. Her answer was the strike of light. Magic tore through the night, chains of gold and green, forged from the forest itself. They wrapped around Calum's arms, his chest, his throat. He roared, the ground cracking beneath him, but the spell dragged him down into a rift of shadow and flame. His scream echoed as the portal snapped shut. Elira fell to her knees. Blood stained her lips. Her staff rolled from her hand. And then another figure appeared through the haze. Morgana. Elira was in pain. She could feel the baby clawing at her walls, trying to push through. Morgana quickly crouched on the ground beside Elira and helped her deliver the baby. The forest shuddered as Elira screamed one last time, and then the baby's cries cut through the roar of flames. Faye! Elira whispered, reaching weakly toward her daughter. Protect her. Keep her hidden. Her arm fell before she could touch her. Her body stilled. The vision dissolved into blackness, leaving Faye gasping awake, heart slamming against her ribs. Morgana was already there, standing in the shadows, watching as usual. You saw her, Morgana said quietly. Faye swallowed hard. She faced him. She sent him away, but... Her voice broke. I was there. I was just born amidst that. Morgana's face did not soften. Yes, I carried you from the fire. Your mother died that night. The words cut deeper than Faye expected, even though she had always known Elira was gone. And Calum, he's alive, isn't he? Banished, Morgana corrected. Not destroyed. That is why he stirs again. The spell was never meant to kill. It was only meant to bind. Faye's voice trembled. Then why do I feel him? Why do I hear him? Because his blood runs in you, Morgana said, her voice sharp as the crack of a whip. Faye's breath caught. His blood? Morgana's silence was answer enough. At the wolf den, word of the stag had reached them. A hunter's son had stumbled on its carcass, veins black, eyes blank, the body reeking of decay. It is a curse, Rourke muttered, and curses carry names. Lucas stood at the edge of the circle, arms folded. His wolf bristled inside him, every instinct telling him the forest was no longer safe. If it is what we think. He stopped himself, unwilling to say the name, but Elias said it anyway. Calum. The council fell silent. One of the elders shook her head. Impossible. He was destroyed. Was he? Elias asked. Lucas's jaw clenched. He remembered the stories, how Elira had vanished that night, how her body was found broken, but her enemy's corpse never seen. Only ashes. Only silence. We don't fight shadows, Lucas said finally. We fight what walks in them. Until I see his face, I won't believe it. But deep inside, Jared stirred uneasily, and Lucas knew belief wasn't a choice. That night, in the stillness of the Coven's camp, Faye sat at the border of the wards. Her magic tingled against the barrier, warning her it was weaker than it looked. She thought of the vision, her mother's voice, Calum's silver eyes. I won't let you come back, she whispered into the trees. The shadows shifted as though listening. A low murmur crawled across the ground, so faint she almost thought it her imagination. Child of Elira, you are mine to claim. Faye flinched, heart hammering. The words weren't spoken aloud, yet they echoed inside her head, cold and sure. She stumbled back into the safety of the ward, breath ragged. Morgana appeared at her side, eyes blazing. What did you hear? Faye's lips trembled. Him. Morgana's face hardened like stone. Then he has begun. Far from them all, where dimensions bled together, Calum opened his eyes. 30 years of shadows clung to his body, but his smile was sharp. He stretched his hand, watching veins of black magic curl like smoke around his fingers. Elira's spell had bound him, yes, but it had also taught him. He had spent decades mastering what she had left behind. Soon, he murmured, the throne will be mine. The forest will be mine. And her daughter. He laughed low and hungry. Will be mine too. Chapter 7. The Borderline. Lucas moved quietly through the trees, Elias at his side. The moonlight was thin, spilling pale threads across the forest floor. They were patrolling the border again. The invisible line that had kept wolves and witches apart for 3 decades. But lately, the forest itself had begun to blur that line. Elias crouched, fingers brushing over a patch of soil where the roots had curled unnaturally. It's spreading, he muttered. Calum's touch. Lucas's jaw tightened. The earth smelled wrong here, burnt metal and something older, something that didn't belong. 3 days ago, this ground was steady, Elias went on. Now it's shifting every night. Lucas straightened, his eyes scanning the trees. He's moving closer. They didn't need to say his name. It carried weight, even unspoken. Calum. Banished, but not destroyed. Elias sighed, low and heavy. If the stories are true, he'll come for the witch first. Lucas didn't answer. He knew who Elias meant. The witch he had seen at the border. The one whose presence had unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. His mate. Faye couldn't sleep. She hadn't slept properly since the vision of the boy in the grave. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, linen-wrapped bodies, wolves standing silent in mourning, a man with crimson bright eyes. Tonight was no different. The forest whispered, pulling her from the hollow before dawn. Barefoot, cloak trailing, she moved through the trees until she reached the border again. She pressed her palm to the soil. Magic stirred, humming beneath her skin. The pulse was sharp, irregular, like a heartbeat out of rhythm. She hissed softly and drew her hand back. Something was wrong. Something was close. The branch snapped behind her. She turned fast, cloak swirling. Lucas stood there again, looking exactly as she remembered. "Why are you here?" Faye asked, her voice steady though her chest tightened. Lucas studied her. He hadn't expected her voice to sound like that. Low, certain, like the forest itself spoke through her. "You're too close to the line," he said. "This isn't your ground." Faye lifted her chin. "The forest has no borders." "Maybe not for you," Lucas said, "but for us, it does." They stared at each other, neither moving. Faye felt the magic stir again, restless under her skin. Then she noticed something else. His scent. Pine, smoke, and something deeper. Familiar, in a way she couldn't explain. Her pulse quickened. "You're the one who buried the boy," she whispered before she could stop herself. Lucas froze. "How do you know that?" Faye hesitated. She shouldn't tell him. Morgana would forbid it. But the truth pressed against her tongue like it wanted to be free. "I saw," she said softly. "The earth showed me." For a long moment silence stretched between them. His gaze sharpened, suspicion and something like awe flickering there. "You speak to the ground?" he asked. "It speaks to me," Faye replied. Lucas stepped closer without realizing it, his boots crunching softly against leaves. "What else did it show you?" Faye shook her head. "Enough to know your people are dying." The words cut. He didn't flinch, but his hands curled into fists at his sides. "Then you know why we can't waste time." Faye's eyes softened. "You think Calum is the cause." Lucas's jaw clenched. "You don't?" Before she could answer, the soil beneath them shuddered. Both of them dropped to a crouch, palms instinctively pressing against the earth. The ground shuddered beneath them, the soil splitting with a sick crack. Faye staggered back, her palm braced against the earth as something forced its way upward. Not roots. Not stone. A hand burst through the dirt. Black as ash, veins jagged and glowing faintly red, its fingers twisted into claws that scraped at the air like it was hunting for flesh. It twitched once, then curled, and the earth around it rotted, grass shriveling to dust. Lucas's growl tore through the silence. He didn't shift, but the weight of Jared, his wolf, pressed in the sound, low and dangerous. His hand hovered near his blade, ready to strike. Faye couldn't move. The hand didn't reach for Lucas. It reached for her. For a heartbeat she felt it, heat searing up her bones, something ancient and hungry recognizing its blood. The veins in her wrist burned where her mother's mark lay hidden, and she yanked her hand away from the earth as if burned. The hand spasmed, then crumbled into ash, sucked back into the soil like it had never been there. But the ground stayed scarred. Faye's chest heaved. That wasn't just magic. Lucas's gaze was fixed on the broken earth, his voice steady but edged like steel. No, that was him. The ground stilled, but the echo of it lingered in their veins. Lucas pulled his hand back slowly, staring at her as if she had just broken a rule of nature. "You're not just a witch," he said. He did not fully comprehend the meaning of that himself. Faye's heart stumbled. "And you're not just a wolf." For a moment something passed between them, raw, unspoken, undeniable. Neither could name it, not yet. A howl split the night air. Elias, urgent, warning. Lucas stood quickly. "Stay here," he ordered. But Faye rose too, her cloak brushing against him as she stepped forward. "I don't take orders from wolves." Lucas looked at her, really looked at her, and something inside him shifted. She was dangerous, yes. But not in the way Morgana had warned. She was dangerous because she made him want to trust again. The howl came again, closer this time. Lucas swore under his breath. Faye glanced toward the trees, her pulse quickening. Whatever it is, it's moving fast. Lucas gave her one last sharp look. "Then stay behind me." For the first time in years, he didn't know if he was giving an order or making a plea. The forest groaned as something tore through it, branches snapping, roots ripping from the ground. The scent hit them both at once, ash, iron, and the bitter stench of old magic. Calem's mark. Faye's stomach twisted. Lucas's eyes darkened. The trees bent inward, as though recoiling from what was coming. And for the first time since her visions began, Faye felt it fully. Her blood pounding in her ears, her heart thrumming like a drumbeat too fast, too wild. For a second she thought she heard a growl. Not from Lucas. From herself. She pressed a hand to her chest, shaken. Lucas turned to her, eyes narrowing, as if he'd heard it too. Then the forest split open. Chapter 8. The Shattered Grove. The sound tore through the forest, branches snapping like bones, the ground quaking under heavy steps. Lucas's eyes glowed faintly under the moonlight as he shifted his stance. Beside him, Faye's breath came quick and shallow. "It's him," she whispered. Lucas's jaw tightened. No, not yet. Just his shadow. The trees groaned as something emerged, half beast, half illusion, stitched from smoke and claw. It snarled, eyes burning with unnatural fire. A creature born of Calem's corruption. "Stay behind me," Lucas said again, low and sharp. But Faye stepped forward, her fingers curling. "If that's Calem's work, then I won't hide from it." The beast lunged. Lucas moved faster than thought, meeting it head-on. His claws ripped into the smoke, but the creature didn't falter. It howled, its cry piercing the air. From the shadows, Elias appeared, daggers gleaming silver in his hands. He slashed at the beast's flank, and the smoke shrieked where his blades cut. "Magic!" Elias gritted out. "The wound burns it." Lucas glanced back, surprise flickering. "How do you—" "Later!" Elias barked, driving his blade deeper. His voice carried a resonance, a sharpness that didn't belong to wolves. Faye's eyes widened. She felt it instantly. Not just steel in his strike, magic. The beast reeled, staggering, its form unraveling. Lucas tore into it again, ripping smoke from smoke until the creature collapsed into ash. Silence fell. The grove trembled once more and stilled. Lucas wiped the black stain from his arm. His chest rose and fell heavily, his gaze fixed on Elias. "You want to explain how you knew that?" Elias sheathed his blades, expression unreadable. "I've fought shadows before." "Not all battles are won with fangs." Faye tilted her head. "You're not just wolf." Elias's eyes flicked to hers, sharp, warning. For a moment she swore he would deny it, but instead he gave a small, grim smile. "No," he said quietly. "I'm not." Lucas's brows furrowed, but Elias looked at him steadily. "Your father trusted me. You do too. That's all that matters." Faye, however, felt the weight of his words sink into her. He wasn't just half wolf. The magic in his veins sang too clearly for her not to sense it. "You're half witch," she whispered. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Lucas turned to Elias, his expression darkening, but Elias didn't deny it. "I am," he said at last. His voice carried no shame, only steel. "And it's why I can see what others can't. Calem's corruption, his reach. If we're going to stop him, you'll need both sides." Lucas exhaled slowly, tension coiling in his shoulders. He should have felt angry, maybe even betrayed. But instead he gave the faintest nod. "You've never failed me before." Elias's mouth curved, almost a smile. "And I don't plan to start now." Faye stood silent, her heart pounding. Both sides. The words echoed inside her, unsettling. She felt something stir beneath her skin, restless, alive. Her pulse throbbed in her ears again, too sharp, too wild. She pressed a hand to her chest. Lucas caught the movement, his gaze narrowing. "Are you hurt?" Faye shook her head quickly. "No, just the magic is heavy here." But it wasn't just the magic. She knew it. She could feel something beneath it, coiled tight inside her, straining against walls she hadn't known were there. The ash scattered on the wind, leaving only silence. Lucas turned back toward the trees, his voice low. That wasn't Calem himself. "Just a message." Elias nodded grimly. "He's telling us he's close." Faye looked at the ground where the beast had fallen. The soil was cracked, scorched black. She crouched, pressing her fingertips to the earth. For a moment she felt its pain, its weariness. Then something else. A whisper. Faint, almost buried. "Daughter." Her breath caught. She yanked her hand back, eyes wide. Lucas noticed immediately. "What did you see?" Faye forced herself to breathe, to steady her voice. "Nothing. Just echoes." But inside her heart raced. The forest had never spoken that word to her before. She lifted her head, meeting Lucas's gaze. For a moment she thought of telling him, but then Elias shifted beside them, his half-witch eyes sharp and knowing, and she swallowed the words. The secret was hers to keep, for now. Chapter 9. Whispers in the Dark. The council chamber was thick with smoke and tension. The fire burned low, shadows crawling up the stone walls like restless creatures. Every elder sat stiff-backed, their voices sharp, their gazes sharper. "The earth itself rose against us," Rourke said, his fist slamming the table. "What more proof do you need?" Calem claws at the veil, and still you wait. Lucas sat at the head, arms folded, jaw locked. His eyes flicked briefly to Faye, who stood near the back, silent but alert. He could feel the weight of her presence, the bond humming between them, even now when every elder's eyes seemed to burn into her. For obvious reasons, the invisible border was temporarily revoked. "We can't act out of panic," Lucas said evenly. "That's what Calem wants." "What he wants," Rourke snapped, "is to take your head and burn our pack to ash." Marin raised a wrinkled hand, silencing the room. Her gaze lingered on Faye. The girl saw it too. Let her speak. The room shifted. Faye felt the pull of a dozen stares. She swallowed, her voice low but steady. It wasn't just magic. It felt connected, like it knew me. A murmur rippled through the elders. Suspicion, unease. "That's because it does," Elias said from his seat beside Lucas. His voice carried no hesitation, though his hand tightened on the edge of the table. That wasn't a curse at random. That was a summoning hand. Calem reached through the fracture in the veil, and he reached for her. Several elders stiffened. One spat on the ground. "Easy words, coming from a man with witch blood." Elias didn't flinch, though the insult cut deep. "Half-witch blood," he corrected. "And that's why I know what I saw." That hand was crafted from blood rites and stolen bone. It bore Elira's mark, twisted, corrupted. Faye's stomach knotted. Her mother's name still felt foreign on her tongue, though she'd heard it whispered in the coven halls, as if speaking it too loud might call something back. Lucas's eyes burned into Elias. "Explain it plain." Elias leaned forward, his voice measured. "Calum is alive. Trapped, yes, but not powerless. He's clawing at the barrier of his prison, using fragments of Elira's magic he stole. And if he finds enough of her bloodline," his gaze flicked briefly toward Faye, "he won't stay trapped." Silence. Heavy. Lucas stood, the scrape of his chair loud in the chamber. "Then we make sure he never touches her." Faye's chest tightened. The room pressed in, walls of stone and suspicion. She wanted to breathe the forest's air, not this choking smoke. Later, outside beneath the moon, Lucas found her leaning against a pine, her cloak pulled tight around her shoulders. "You should have stayed inside," he said. Her eyes flicked up, sharp. "So, you can lock me away like I'm already his prisoner?" Lucas exhaled slowly. "That's not what I meant." "It's what you're doing," she shot back. "Every move I make, you watch. Every word I say, you measure. You think if you keep me hidden, you'll keep me safe. But he's already reaching for me, Lucas." What happens when hiding isn't enough? His hand flexed at his side. He wanted to argue, but the bond thrummed between them, silencing him. Instead, his voice dropped low. "You don't understand what it does to me, knowing he wants you." The words caught in the night air, heavier than either expected. Faye looked at him, the anger in her eyes softening, just slightly. "And you don't understand that I've been running my whole life. Hiding, pretending I'm nothing but a witch. If I keep living like that, then maybe he's already won." Lucas stepped closer, the scent of pine and smoke clinging to him. His gaze searched hers, ocean eyes, dark. For a heartbeat, neither spoke. Then Elias's voice cut through the trees. "Lucas." "Faye." They turned. His expression was grim, his hand clutching a charred feather. "I found this near the border," Elias said. "It doesn't belong to any bird I know." Burned black from the inside, feathers melted into bone. "He's testing the wards, sending things through." Lucas frowned. "Things?" Elias dropped the feather at their feet. "Corruptions. Half-creatures. Wolves that aren't wolves. Witches that aren't witches. Twisted until even the earth recoils from them." Faye's blood chilled. She thought of the black hand clawing for her, of the grave visions, of whispers in her dreams. "Then it's begun," Lucas murmured. His voice was quiet, but Jared pressed at the edge of it, fierce and ready. The wind carried a howl that wasn't a wolf's, too jagged, too hollow. The three of them froze, every instinct sharpened. From the tree line beyond the border, eyes gleamed, dozens of them. Pale, wrong, and hungry.